the other things for this week are pretty light by comparison. So I've been so busy, I haven't really been paying attention to like the latest memes and pop culture stuff and all that. And when I saw this whole Jimothy thing, I'm like, okay, real quick, and then that whatever, back to work. I didn't realize it blew up this much. A guildmate, I think they might be here in chat. They were talking about how their office was like pushing, starting to create products or something related to this phenomenon, apparently. And I'm thinking to myself, have I seen this kind of condition in other places around? No, we see mostly squirrels up in up where we live. Yeah, not too much with raccoons and all that. But this thing is just awkward. So anyway, what's happening is that Blizzard paid attention. They paid enough attention to this, and this is going to become a non-com. I don't know if it's going to be a zero combat pet, but you know what I mean. It's going to be a pet in WoW in the future. I don't know when, but it's going to be a thing. And I believe they clarified in a Reddit post that it's not going to be a shop item or anything like that. It's going to be something that you can earn in game. That's it. That's the story. So some good housing news happened to come out too. This happened in a number of tweets that came out, but also like some general updates or things that we've observed. One is that we can now have up to 100 pets inside the house. So pet beds and all that, by the way, they're very cheap. You could just go to the neighborhood. They only cost like a handful of gold. You can just buy as many as you want. And if you want to use 100 whole budget, housing budget, storage, whatever, to have 100 pets, fine. If you want to use 100, if you want to use all that budget to have a bunch of them out, that's fine too. And I believe, let me pull this up. These have a pretty high budget though, 5 to put out. So if you wanna, really throw down and use up to what, 500 budget just for your pets, okay. Now, thankfully, with the patch, we're going to have like a higher maximum budget if we reach level 12. It's pretty darn high. I think it's going to go up to like 5,000, 6,000 or something like that. So it's going to be pretty crazy. And you can use all that for your pets. So if you want to do that, awesome. The other big thing that I can't really like show it on screen here, I don't think, but it's going to be hard to see. Our housing storage is also going to increase. So right now it's at 7,500. It's going to go up to 10,000. Very, very high. So that's going to help out a ton for having all our pet beds, as well as our bajillion filigrees and whatever. That's going to go up alongside total budgets and room budgets. So houses are going to get even crazier. They're going to get bigger. They're going to get nastier. And then, of course, there's all the new decor that's been introduced with this patch. I covered a lot of it, from the crafted stuff to some of these cool snazzy beams and tiles and all that, to even pre-built stairs. So that's going to be some welcome news on the housing front. Also, in other decor news, Decor Duels is going to be ending with the upcoming patch. So what you want to do right now is take advantage of it, of course. There's currently this final surge sort of promo going, where you'll basically get double the currencies that you get from completing a match. And it's pretty easy to get. They're right now, at least, the queue times are really low. A lot of folks are doing them so they can like knock out getting their decor, their appearances, because the decor, while that is said to be purchasable with Marl after the patch, they didn't say anything specifically about the other things. There's like a mount. There's also some transmog appearances. So it might be in your interest to get those if you want to knock those out. Chances are pretty good, because we're in this kind of like different era, that FOMO of those sorts of items, that's probably not going to be a thing. They're going to come back somehow, some way. But I would safely argue the fastest way to get them would be like now. You'll be able to farm Decor Duels pretty fast and complete those collections that way. Now, there has been a lot of talk about like, oh my god, this is FOMO. How did we not know about this? So I actually had to look. I wanted to double check, and I saw that in Icy Veins' coverage of Decor Duels, there were interviews that were done the week of April 20th or so. Icy Veins had covered it, and they said, "Oh, well, we're not sure if it's going to be a temporary event, or we're not sure how the schedule is going to be." Same thing happened in Wowhead. But the interview that I did with these developers, they said pretty plain and clearly that this is going to be a temporary sort of event.
Currently, the Decor rewards and all of the rewards from Decor Duel will only be available from Decor Duel. However, we as a philosophy don't want to make something that players won't be able to ever get again, because that just doesn't feel great. So it is something that we're conscious of, and something that we will consider going forward, because this is, as of right now, planned to be a temporary game mode. We want to make sure that it's not going to be the kind of thing where players are going to have 3 items in their house and will never be able to get the 4th one that matches, because that feels real bad. That happened. It went, yeah.
So I was actually kind of weirded out when I was seeing the reactions from folks, and I was like, wait, what? I could have swore like I covered this and I said that, yeah, it's going to be a temporary event. Why are people acting so surprised? And it's because I think that I was the only person who said it. Who had that information out on hand, and that information only goes so far when it's just me that's saying it. And I don't think my interview was covered in Wowhead because they did their own thing. So kind of an interesting development there with how news does or doesn't get disseminated. But well, we kind of knew it already, but apparently not. I mean, the crowd that's really reacting, the crowd that was reacting to this so strongly is typically the ones who are just like, well, I don't really care about the core duels anyway, but I want the rewards, so I'm just going to slack off until like it becomes a thing. But even without the interview, I still would have figured that you probably want to knock these out now because it's easy to do. You might as well just do it while do it early on when a lot of people happen to be doing it. The next best time to do it is when it's about to go away, because then a lot of people are like, oh my god, and so now they're hopping in again. But some folks are like, we're acting surprised, and again, despite us having the information kind of sort of out there, you'd figure that it'd be the case, like in cases of like Plunderstorm and Decor Duels and other similar features where the mode really depends on players. It's not going to last very long, because eventually people are going to get the things that they want, and then they'll stop coming. What happened with Decor Duels, though, is slightly different, because people who went back over and over again throughout this season, ever since the 12.05 patch, they were going back because Decor was repeatable and they were getting more of it. Now, if Decor Duels was only like one-time transmog and pet and appearance collections, and you could effectively be done with it once you get a certain number of things, then you fall off. And so the fall off on Decor Duels would have been much harder. If in fact, it might have been like, all but dead, if it wasn't for Decor being a constant churning thing. So, in a way, that might be a learning lesson for Blizzard, that like, hey, that's one of the ways to keep certain events enduring, is that, to provide something that has like this kind of like constant need and this little bit of urgency, but it's also something that's easy to jump in and out of, like Decor Duels. And I have a feeling that if Blizzard did want to, they could have kept it going, but in order to do that, in a way that feels more palatable, they would have needed to have just like added more decor, more maps, things like that, and they probably didn't. And so their best bet right now, they're like, okay, we'll go ahead and shut it down right now, and hopefully maybe it'll come back later. It might not, though, so we'll just have to kind of see. So it's hard to not talk about like one of the biggest news things that happened this week, that whole drama over apparently, and I guess this is factual now, a GM had assisted a group with clearing a key using GM powers. Now, I want to handle this carefully, because I want to kind of like take all the emotion out of the story. I just want to talk about like what happened and all that. I don't want to dox. I don't want to bring up like, oh my god, like it's the streamer who's involved. It starts to it starts to kind of devolve from there. In fact, probably the better way to do this, it would be to just read off the blue post that is the latest news, the latest update, and maybe the last word from them. So as we mentioned, says Blizzard, we internally monitored and confirmed a recent incident in which a WoW group gained an unfair advantage by abuse of access to development-only spells on a live realm. Our tools confirm what was also surfaced in community discussions, and we've investigated the incident carefully. We can confirm this was the action of a single Blizzard employee in violation of our code of conduct. This employee is no longer with the company, effective immediately. We're also taking action against player accounts that were complicit in this violation. And we're going to do kind of a breakdown of what happened here. It's always been the case that a small number of Blizzard employees can use developer tools and spells on live servers. This lets us test and make urgent fixes to the live game when they're needed. Every use of these internal spells and commands on live realms is logged and shared with our platform security team, plural, to help ensure that the occasional use of this access is warranted. The use of development tools for anything other than development work is against company policy. It's because of the process we have in place around use of these tools, so we're confident this incident was isolated to the one individual. We want to thank those of you in the WoW community who reached out with information and real concern for the integrity of the game, as well as the community sites that are also working to remove the results of this violation from their records. When your findings line up with ours, it helps us confirm our own tools are catching what they should, and we're grateful for the way we work alongside you to protect the game and each other. Yay. So working our way backwards, big credit to those in the community who were involved, from the person who was part of this key, who uploaded this thing in the first place. That's what really, like, you know, sunlight is like the best cure for stuff like this, right? The more that's revealed, the more that, the faster these sorts of investigations can go. So that way punishments and, actionable things can happen. So, big kudos to that person who was involved with it, and the fact that we even have an infrastructure of logs so that way people can disseminate and all that. And I want to keep the possible doxing and personalization and emotion out of it. Again, we're just kind of like going with what happened. I do appreciate a Blizzard response, and I was underestimating it myself. I remember when this first happened, I was like, okay, I don't know if we have like all the facts. People are saying this. There's like suddenly interviews. It felt like the story was taking a life of its own, and I was just kind of like watching and be like, okay, this is happening like really fast, and I wasn't sure if the coverage here was possibly being tainted by folks who were just playing telephone, and then we would start exaggerating things, and then especially with people like doxing and naming names and things like that. So I was like, okay, I feel like I want to stay away from it and just kind of stick to the plain facts of things. I do find it fascinating that I guess apparently, when it comes to using GM powers, there's like NORAD level kinds of detection. Like, okay, it's almost as if, when someone uses a GM power, I guess apparently it kind of sets off alarm and says if it's like, oh my God, there's been a missile launch. And then you can imagine like Blizzard HQ, like, brap, brap, and people are like, oh my God, who did? It's obviously not like that. I have a feeling that when it comes to their internal tools that track this sort of stuff, I'm sure it's not like this real time, oh my God, it happened. It's probably like they check in like every week or month or something like that. They see a log of like stuff that happens, and then, someone audits it and then looks into it, and then they decide, oh, okay, this is kind of weird, or this is kind of normal. And so a tweet that I put out the other day, I was kind of questioning, I wonder if it wasn't for the live logging on the community side, and then the person who uploaded it, if not for that, how long would it have taken for Blizzard to detect that, under their normal policies? Because it sounds like they have a normal policy, but it's probably not a real-time policy, as if it's like, a live game and you have a live review of everything that happens as it happens. I kind of doubt that. A big part of the urgency of this story in the first place is the possibility of competitive WoW feeling tainted. It's like, okay, how do we trust these anymore? Can we go back and see like all the logs that were ever done in an effort to preserve the integrity of things? And so I guess that's why Blizzard wanted to come out with these kinds of statements, so they made as clear as possible what kind of actions they're taking. So the dude got fired, right? And that's just part of like what feels like a normal process. Like if we kind of like take a step back from this, what Blizzard did here, it's not so different from other similar situations where if someone was hacking or if there was like some sort of exploit that was done, what do they do about it? So in a case like this, it's kind of not exactly gray because obviously someone did something wrong. But there's a lot of folks who are out there being like, oh, okay, the whole team minus the tank who reported this in the first place, that all of them should be punished. They should all get like IP banned, their accounts nuked, and that sort of thing. And of course, I feel the same way. Like something's got to be done if they were, as they say here, complicit in this situation. Now, I'm also wondering to myself, like, somewhere in the code of conduct, in the player code of conduct, these people did something wrong. But as for the actual actions that happened, it's not like they have the power to nuke mobs with one shot. They called up their dude. They're, yo, do me a solid or whatever it was. So it wasn't exactly them that did it, but one of them among the group was like kind of the mastermind behind it. And then the other people were cool with it. So how do you punish that? And I'm, we all have our opinions and none of them are wrong. It's just a question of like, what exactly was Blizzard going to do? Because reportedly, some of the members of this party, they were still doing keys after this statement came out. And so some people are like, oh, well, okay, they're just going to slap on the wrist or nothing's going to happen to them, or, oh, it's because this and that, so people are making up stories. And so while it's great that they said all this, there's also what they didn't say or what they did or didn't do that's causing this story to continue to kind of smolder a bit. But it is nice that they said and did something. Yeah, I wonder what would be like the bestest punishment. I mean, one thing would be, just banning them, but they could always just make another account and do it again. So that's like their history gone and all that. People are naming and shaming. Cool, I guess, if you wanted to do that. I mean, at the very least, like whatever things that they had done should be undone. So like take away their titles or remove them from contention. Banning them for a couple months can easily do that too, on top of removing possible titles. So I don't know, like it's not like they committed like a crime. Like they can't get fired, they can just get banned. Like that's about it. People need to understand Blizzard's policy is not publicly announced sanctions. Like when you report something, you know the results, so we should not expect to hear what happens to the players. At the same time, players are super nosy, right? And so that's where we see some of the alleged reporting that's like, oh my god, I still see them like logging stuff onto Radar.io and they're still clearing stuff. So that's what makes people worried that, oh, these people, they're continuing to act with impunity and all that stuff. And it sends up, and I feel like it does send a bad message. Now, again, like those folks, they didn't have power on their own, right? It's not like they nuked the mob. They didn't pull the trigger. They just told a dude to do it, and now their way of doing it, they can't do that anymore. But also, we kind of think to ourselves, okay, if they are that amoral, what else would they do? Would they resort to hacks and things like that? And, do we want those kinds of players even around? I think it's a good question to ask. The easy answer is no. That's kind of my answer too. So, but as for how they handle it, I think they want to just make sure that they, cover their bases. And they have the room. I think they have the room to do it. Like they put out the statement. That's one thing. But it's not like there's a certain urgency to do it either. No one's going to die. No one's going to bleed out from this. It's just kind of like, okay, rankings are going to change and we have like a couple of weeks to do it. So what they ultimately do, and for all we know, they might do something before this video goes live. Cool. I don't think a ban is needed for them. Having their account marked for all pugs like a scarlet letter would be interesting. Well, people are already doing that. Like I said, people are naming and shaming. They're trying to dox, or maybe they successfully did. And so, what I don't buy into is, ultimately it's a video game. We don't need to like harass those folks on a personal level. Harass them on a professional level, whatever that means. But you know what I mean. It's just bad form. You know, we don't need to like sick the mob on them. But that's also the reality of the world. You know, whenever we get that sort of chance to name and shame someone, and then we get to feel good about doing it because we're so righteous and pure and all that, then people will do it. And it's hard to fight. I am glad that the dude was fired, because that, to me, that's like the most that's the easiest thing for Blizzard to do. I'm like, oh, okay, it's like fixing a bug. Bug fixed. Boom. Exploit closed. You know, hole plugged. Whatever you want to call it. And then that's done. So on their end, that's a big relief. And then the rest is not exactly politics in terms of like how they treat things, or how they punish these players and how that's perceived by others, but sort of, you know. So it's just playing like the perception, the optics game now. And frankly, and personally, I think it would just be easier to just ban them, be done with it. It kind of ends the conversation. I guess the question on their heads is, how long do we want this to be a story? There was some data mined information that rocked the lore side of WoW Twitter. It was a data mine thing, and I'm not going to talk about it, what the data mine thing was, but it basically said, it was like, oh, this suggests the epilogue of this upcoming patch of 12.1. So after the raid, there's like going to be like this thing happens, and part of the script was leaked. Apparently, according to one of the top data miners out there, for Marlman, that data mine script was edited, and now inside this whole data mine text thing is a line that straight up says, this script is out of date, it's not being used. And so I'm wondering to myself, okay, is it not being used because there's like a minor change to it, or has like this entire context of this spoiler, because I'm not going to talk about it, is the entire context of the spoiler being thrown out? Reason I'm bringing this up is to just kind of point out how much folks rely on data mining, and how data mining becomes news, and then it becomes fact, and then it becomes reactions, and possibly a lot of wasted energy. So for all we know, those are like really early notes, Jolly Good Fella, and like either part of it changed or it's like totally different. You know, like at the end of 12.1, Transformers come out and they're like, yes, you know, it's our time now, and now weird shit's happening. So it could be that for all we know.